There are still many things about Pippa Middleton and James Matthews that you might not be aware of, despite the fact that their marriage appears to be joyful on the surface. There are moments when it's difficult because I feel like I've been publicly harassed a little bit just because I've read things that are obviously untrue. From the outside, Pippa Middleton's life appeared to be flawless. Her marriage to James Matthews seemed solid, and she exuded confidence and grace. They were wealthy. On Saturday, May 20th, the 33-year-old socialite and her longtime partner, hedge fund manager James Matthews, exchanged vows. Additionally, they had a royal link that enhanced their image, but according to sources, they have since discreetly split. There was only quiet discussion behind the scenes, no public statement or announcement. And now the same question is being asked by everyone: what actually took place? Living in the spotlight all the time, Pippa Middleton became well known due to her proximity rather than her decision. The spotlight shifted to Pippa when her sister Kate wed Prince William. Suddenly, everyone was interested in her personal life. It was too much attention. She was trailed everywhere by paparazzi. Every gaze, every dinner date, and every clothing became a headline. Let's discuss something that is, in fact, rather logical. We have the most recent information on what is dubbed the UK's wedding of the year. Pippa Middleton's marriage was celebrated with a late-night party by the royal family. She hadn't settled down by the time she was approaching 40, and people had loud questions about her. She appeared to have everything to the general public. In her heart, she felt trapped. It became difficult to date. Nothing she did could remain private, not because there were no other possibilities. She immediately inspected every male she encountered. It was difficult to determine who truly cared about her and who merely desired the attention that her name brought. Pippa's early partnerships were also scrutinized. Alex Ledden, a gifted cricket player with a hectic schedule, was one of her first public boyfriends. Despite just breaking up with partner Alex Ledden, the 28-year-old looked happy. She also, predictably, drew crowds of photographers who wanted to take pictures. Things were hopeful at first, but tension was created by the distance, the journey, and the pressure from the media. Despite their best efforts, they were unable to maintain their emotional bond and eventually parted ways. She met James Matthews shortly after. It took place in 2011 when visiting St. Bart's. Pippa was staying at the Eden Rock Hotel, which was owned by James's parents. They clicked right away. Although they had chemistry, she didn't take James seriously because she was still seeing Alex at the time. They remained cordial. The timing was off, but the spark was there. Pippa started dating successful stockbroker Nico Jackson before she and James could get serious. It was exciting to be with them. They appeared content, laughed, and traveled. James, meanwhile, remained silently in the background the entire time. He and Pippa continued to communicate and had a steady connection that never truly waned. A year or so after her breakup with Alex, Pippa was spotted out to dinner with James in 2012. About 2 weeks ago, the 32-year-old socialite and her longtime partner, Nico Jackson, announced their separation. The pair spent over 3 years together. People took notice. Was this anything more serious, or was she just moving on too quickly? According to her pals, she behaved more naturally and authentically when James was present. However, Nico remained her primary focus in early 2013. In public, the two appeared strong and affectionate. Rumor even circulated that they were getting ready to tie the knot. Real life, however, had other ideas. Nico was employed in Geneva. Pippa was a Chelsea resident. Eventually, the gap grew too great. They tried to make it work for 2 years before calling it quits. Things changed between Pippa and James shortly after the split when timing finally aligned. There were no conflicting indications this time. They reunited in a way that seemed more grown-up and stable. Pippa's search for romance has evolved. She was prepared for a genuine collaboration. They formally announced their relationship in 2016. Just them, joyful and out in the open, with no concealment or conjecture. And it appeared to be the actual thing for a time. Pippa had been in and out of the spotlight for years. Although she was obviously different from her sister, she was likable due to her charm, elegance, and sense of humor. The future queen was Kate. The girl next door was Pippa, but Kensington Palace was the actual next door. They were not descended from royalty. The Middletons were renowned for their self-reliance and practicality. They put forth a lot of work and brought up their daughters to be grounded. But that equilibrium was upset when Kate became a member of the royal family. A fairy tale-like transformation occurred in Kate's life. Meanwhile, Pippa observed from the sidelines. Prince William and Kate Middleton's royal wedding was supposed to be a dream come true. The prospective king and bride are the center of attention. However, an unforeseen event occurred. April 29, 2011, was the big day for Catherine Middleton and Prince William. Walking just behind her sister, in that plain white dress, Pippa Middleton immediately captured the attention of people all around the world. She was suddenly in the news. The younger sister of the Duchess quickly rose to prominence on fashion blogs and magazine covers. She had never been this famous before. Cameras followed her everywhere. What had been an everyday occurrence had turned into a show for the public. Without flashing lights and people observing her every move, she was unable to go to the grocery store. Then she realized what Kate had been going through for years. Pippa initially believed she could manage it. She thought the attention would go away, or perhaps even help her establish a more distinct identity apart from being Kate's sister. However, there aren't always rules associated with fame. It was thrilling, but it also invaded her privacy. People were more interested in who she was dating, who she was spotted with, and what she did all day long than they were in her wardrobe choices. Her relationship with James Matthews, a former racer who now manages hedge funds, gained a lot of attention very fast. The fact that he was not only wealthy but also the heir to a Scottish estate added to the public's interest in their relationship. Pippa was suddenly more than just the royal sister. She was a member of a wealthy couple whose tale everyone wished to hear. Every gathering they went to generated a lot of conversation. Each intimate meal turned into a news story. Pippa's silent ascent to fame. It's difficult to compete with a sister who marries into the royal family. Pippa Middleton always followed her own route, aim and desire. Standing out, however, was a different type of challenge in a culture that was always comparing her to the Duchess of Cambridge. She was raised in a household that emphasized hard work. Her upbringing was grounded rather than noble. Her mother started a party supply company from the ground up, while her father was an aircraft worker. Although the family was wealthy, they lacked titles. Inspired by her parents' party organizing business, Pippa Middleton has released her first book, Celebrate, a year of British festivities for families and friends. Pippa's self-perception was influenced by their preference for hard work over publicity. She started her career in public relations, advertising luxury goods, after studying English literature at the University of Edinburgh. She eventually transitioned into event organizing for a London company that focused on business events. Long before the royal wedding thrust her into the public eye, she was quietly establishing herself in the business world. Pippa surpassed celebrities like Princess Eugenie and James Blunt to be dubbed the most eligible single woman in high society in 2008. The moniker stayed, and she had officially entered the world of British socialites. However, following the 2011 royal wedding, her notoriety soared. She was listed among the top 100 important individuals in the world by 2012. This was an enormous victory to outsiders. But it was bittersweet to those who knew her. According to reports, she thought her inclusion on those lists was more related to her sister's wedding than her own job, and that the recognition wasn't really earned. Success in the Middleton family wasn't something you inherited by association, rather it was something you worked for. Pippa felt as though she was competing in a race she had not entered, despite the public's admiration. Every action she took was compared to Kate's. Furthermore, it is difficult to feel as though you are winning when you are continuously compared to someone who is married to the future king. Pippa didn't give up though. She continued creating, working, and attempting to establish herself. She also supported her quiet, loving husband, James Matthews. She wished that their relationship would exhibit the same harmony between private and public power as Kate and William's. Pippa persisted in attending events, grinning, and standing by James, but he hardly ever shared the limelight with her. He remained in the background, as though their lives were taking two different paths. Pippa Middleton intended to open up more about her life to James Matthews in public, but things didn't work out the way she had hoped. James had no desire for attention. Her attempts to bring him into the spotlight only served to distance him from her. Her friends subtly cautioned her that attempting to change him would have uncontrollable consequences for their further relationship. Pippa, however, hoped such would not be the case. James Matthews was a wealthy financier who had previously lived two lives as a professional racing car driver. He had an impressive background and a well-known name. However, he did not seek limelight like many others in his social group did. He rarely appeared on red carpets, liked solitude, and valued silence over glitz. James didn't look for interviews or media attention despite his prominence. He avoided all of that. In contrast, Pippa had grown to be a well-known figure. Prior to 2011, she was simply another Berkshire woman. Following Kate Middleton's royal wedding that was altered, the younger sister, wearing the ivory Alexander McQueen dress, was the center of attention. The exquisite buttons and smooth drape of the modest design left a lasting impression. The outfit became a must-have when her appearance received widespread praise. Pippa suddenly acquired a fan base. People were curious about her identity. She seized the opportunity to capitalize on the attention. She began creating her own identity, published a book with party ideas and food, and developed a lifestyle business. For Pippa Middleton, this year has been extremely hectic. She is now revealing herself in her brand new party planning book after spending so much time in the spotlight. She appeared to be in charge, even if she wasn't Kate's sister. However, there were difficulties associated with celebrity. Things took a turn for the worst in April 2011. The media was leaked private images of Pippa and Kate on a yacht. The breach went too far, and the pictures weren't intended for public consumption. The Middleton family made the decision to sue large publications. Eventually, the pictures were taken off, but the harm had already been done. Pippa's private life was now open knowledge. She was no longer merely associated with royalty after that. She was well known, and once fame takes hold, it's hard to shake. James never gave the impression that he wanted to comply with the media attention. He stayed away from the typical celebrity rituals and hardly ever attended events. While Pippa navigated a life full of public appearances, he quietly provided her with support this disparity was not overlooked. Their relationship was immediately questioned on the internet. Why didn't they get together more frequently? Was there a problem? Pippa had learned to control the attention, but James stayed silent. And for some reason, that distinction benefited them. Appearances were not the foundation of their marriage. It was based on support and understanding. Pippa provided visibility even when their public pathways diverged. James provided serenity. They were able to balance two lifestyles in their life together. One was pleasantly secluded, the other was continuously watching. To them it made sense, even though it might not have made sense to others. The day of their wedding, Pippa and James' wedding, was everything and more than anyone could have imagined. It was huge and silent, all at once. They decided to hold the ceremony at St. Mark's Church in Englefield, which is located in the serene countryside, far from the city. On Saturday, Pippa Middleton and James Matthews, a hedge fund manager, were married at St. Mark's Church in Englefield, England. It was a serene setting, with lovely gardens and verdant pastures. The wedding was modest but meaningful, much like their personality. All day long, Kate Middleton supported her sister. She was already aware of the pressure of a public occasion because she was the Duchess of Cambridge. She ensured Pippa felt encouraged and assisted in running the wedding festivities. Having Mom close by helped Pippa feel calm and made the day go more smoothly. Their identities as individuals and as a couple were reflected in every aspect of the event. Pippa contributed the allure of a celebrity, accustomed to being the center of attention. James remained composed and unflinching, unfazed by the throng. Together they commemorated not only their marriage, but also the silent bond that had held them together while living in two very different worlds. It was hard to overlook Kate Middleton's support for her sister from the start of the wedding. She assumed command in a cool, collected manner. Kate maintained order behind the scenes, particularly with regard to her kids, while Pippa concentrated on her wedding day. Princess Charlotte and Prince George played important parts in the event. While Charlotte, dressed as a flower girl, brought a charming touch to the occasion, George walked as a page boy. Kate ensured that both kids remained composed and did their assigned tasks precisely. Everyone went to the Middleton family's house for a private reception following the official ceremony. With sophisticated tents, lovely floral arrangements, and gentle lighting, the backyard had been transformed into a luminous space. It didn't need to be ostentatious, but it wasn't. It was evident from the dancing, laughter, and general happiness that this was a celebration of love, rather than merely a high-profile event. This wedding perfectly encapsulated Pippa and James's relationship. It was modest but elegant and sincere. Despite not being a royal event, it attracted international attention, primarily because people wanted to watch how Pippa would carve out her own prominence. Kate stayed beside her sister all day, silently checking on her while she was there. Despite being a big attraction for photographers, she didn't steal the show. Rather, she let Pippa take center stage. Their bond was based on friendship, trust, and emotional support. When the cameras are removed, that kind of bond remains. Where did the change begin? The dynamic between Pippa and James began to feel different over time. They weren't seen together as frequently as many thought. They always seemed content and collected in photos, as like everything was going smoothly. Their public persona painted a serene and idyllic picture of married life. However, people began to notice that, as a couple, they seldom ever went to high-profile events. There were no huge social events, charity galas, red carpet appearances, formal declarations, or indications of a breakup. However, the lack of presence raised questions that no one was able to address. People started focusing more on Pippa's actions. Something changed in her energy. She didn't seem as happy or gregarious. Others questioned whether something more emotional was at play, while others thought it was simply the strain of parenting three young children. Pippa had always been known for her sense of style. Her previous attire was lively, colorful, and amusing. She stood out through her clothing, but not in a noticeable way. However, she has been dressing more subtly lately. Simpler attire, subdued hues, and a more aloof public persona. According to style experts, her clothes were a reflection of her inner state. She was described as appearing more guarded and reticent, perhaps due to emotional stress. Speculation started among those who watched the Middleton family and the royal entourage. Was there pressure on her marriage? People who knew the couple or carefully followed the narrative began to consider how different they were as individuals. Like her sister Kate, Pippa had become accustomed to being in the spotlight. She knew how to deal with popularity, but she wasn't pursuing it. James was always favored a more subdued life. He was raised in a culture that emphasized seclusion. Pippa went to occasions where cameras flashed, while James avoided them. He disliked having his photo in the papers and being questioned. According to reports, their divergent approaches to public life began to drive a wedge between them. According to some close to the couple, their relationship may gradually suffer as a result of this conflict of tastes. Pippa's public life came with social settings that James didn't like. The attention that came with marrying someone so closely associated with the royal family was something he didn't get used to. In 2019, the shift in their relationship became more apparent. Pippa appeared by herself at a British Heart Foundation charity function. It was already uncommon to see her out, considering this was only a few months after she gave birth. The fact that she arrived without James attracted even more attention. People responded courteously when questioned about her spouse. James had stayed at home with the infant, she explained. People noticed the little halt, but she smiled, chuckled a little, and continued. It didn't feel natural, but it wasn't theatrical either. Discussions on the internet quickly became more active. Some people believed the couple was simply keeping their relationship quiet. Others questioned whether Pippa was hiding more serious issues in the partnership. Everyone sensed that something had changed, but nobody had a definitive response. Nobody foresaw the Cold War. Pippa Middleton and James Matthews were photographed together once more in St. Bart's, the same bright island where their romance initially began, shortly after whispers of turmoil started to circulate. Unaffected by rumors, they appeared at ease, grinning for the cameras and acting like a couple. It seemed like a silent message to many. They were still together. Pippa Middleton has a spouse. The 33-year-old socialite, and James Matthews, a hedge fund manager, and her lifelong partner. Whispers have persisted despite the tropical scenery and well-groomed smiles. Stiff moments between them were noted by several keen onlookers. Furthermore, a new source of tension had begun to emerge. From within the family this time. The Matthews family has consistently portrayed itself as a cohesive one. They even collaborated to plan a charity swim event back in 2015. However, a subtle conflict was already developing between Pippa and Vogue Williams, who is wed to Spencer Matthews. James' younger. Pippa and Vogue never developed a strong relationship, even though they were married into the same family. Even though it was never discussed in public, the strain was sensed by those in royally adjacent circles. At occasions, the two women hardly ever spoke to each other. When they did, it was short, formal, and full of well-timed facial expressions, fleeting glances, and smiles that stopped short of the eyes. The gap between them remained concealed under their well-maintained public personas over the years. However, Vogue's commentary has recently gotten more bold and more humorous, particularly in her Netflix program and podcast. Instead of addressing Pippa directly, Vogue seems to refocus her criticism on Meghan Markle on My Therapist Ghosted Me, her podcast. Additionally, Vogue made fun of Meghan's culinary prowess during her Netflix special, Love Meghan, by highlighting an odd combination of Rice Krispies and Cheerios placed in a rainbow theme. Those in the royal orbit believed there was more going on, but to outsiders, it sounded like innocent joking. The critique felt layered because Meghan and Pippa have both been criticized for handling royal expectations in different ways. The joke's second target, according to insiders, was far closer to home. People didn't answer either. Others were left to analyze the subtext, as she remained focused on her tasks. Pippa maintained her voice in philanthropic work, while Vogue found hers in the media. Long before she became a Matthews, she shown a strong desire to change the world. She joined the Berkshire-based Mary Hare School for Deaf Children as an ambassador in 2013, supporting a cause that is near and dear to her heart. She collaborated with artist Sophie Ryder in 2018, while she was expecting her first child to produce 50 one-of-a-kind bronze sculptures that combine human and rabbit shapes. She demonstrated how far she was prepared to go for a cause she believed in by selling these artworks to earn money for the school's new facility. Her passion had already impressed James Matthews. However, it was at a swim run competition in Sweden in 2015 that he really got a glimpse of her abilities. Through the Michael Matthews Foundation, he encouraged Pippa and her brother to participate in the race in memory of James's late brother.
Pippa did more than just take part. James witnessed firsthand her perseverance and determination as she overcame the obstacle. Their relationship took a significant change after that shared event. Together, united by better knowledge and same values, they were creating something. The couple has remained dedicated to their profession and one another, in spite of the ongoing split rumors. Those close to them claim that they have just decided to live quietly, away from the commotion, despite the fact that their infrequent public appearances feed rumors. Red carpet appearances and social media posts don't define their relationship. Rather, they emphasize family life and common objectives. Even a new initiative, a foundation devoted to children with special needs, is being discussed. People close to them think it's an indication of their continuous unity and determination to make a positive impact. Even though nothing official has been confirmed, Pippa and James's relationship isn't founded on grand gestures or public personas. It is based on a belief in giving back, mutual support, and common causes. Despite its imperfections, their marriage is sincere. Pippa Middleton maintains her attention on her job and her family. Regardless of what others say, she remains silent and composed. She appears to lead a modest, private life away from the spotlight with James Matthews. But is there more going on, or is everything actually fine behind the scenes? Please leave a remark below with your ideas.